Hello! So if you don't know, this is part of a series where at the end of each month I sit down and I review all the movies I watched in the month, share my thoughts, whatnot. I generally try to go mild spoilers or spoiler free. However, if you want to go into a movie with absolutely nothing about it in your head, the video is also timestamped, so just skip past the movie that you don't want spoiled at all. And if I give any notable spoilers, I will warn on screen and give you an opportunity to skip ahead. This log is for February of 2026. I might change locations and appearance and stuff throughout the video just because of how I filmed this. I also have made a Google Doc of all of the movies from all of these reviews that I've talked about. So if you want to suggest a movie, then please check that doc first to make sure I haven't already talked about it and whatnot. Without further ado, let's talk about the first movie that I watched this month. So the first movie I watched this month was SLC Punk, SLC standing for Salt Lake City. Now, I've seen Matthew Lillard perform before. Clearest memory is the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but I also remember seeing the Scooby-Doo movies forever ago, and I had watched the original Scream forever ago. But because those were so long ago, this was kind of my first time in memory experiencing a younger Matthew Lillard performing. It's a movie about Matthew Lillard being a punk, and it talks a lot about, the kind of paradoxes that a lot of alternative people fall into. It's less of a movie with a story and more just you follow this guy. The ending's pretty sad. It was okay. I can't imagine myself watching it again, but for what it was, I thought it was fine. And I'm glad I watched it because apparently people like this movie. Also, Matthew Lillard with spiky blue hair is hot. I'm gonna say it. Good movie. Decent movie to start out the month on. The second movie I watched was not good. I watched Host. I believe this is the first movie I've ever given a half-star rating to on Letterboxd. So it's a COVID movie, not in terms of it's about COVID, but it was made during COVID. The idea is basically just they're doing a seance over Zoom, which sounds campy as all hell. It sounds like it would be a great time, but it's just boring. None of the characters are interesting. Nothing interesting happens. It's just a bunch of young adults to middle-aged adults on a Zoom call doing a seance, and then paranormal shit happens, and that's the movie. And it's come the fuck on. That's such a fun, campy concept for a movie. A Zoom seance? That should have been campy as all hell, but it was just boring. It was boring. I was bored out of my mind. Thankfully, it was under an hour long, so at least I didn't waste too much of my time on it, but yeah, no, not a good movie. I was surprised seeing it got decent reviews. Were people just bored as shit during COVID and were yeah, this is good? I feel like it's either that or people who maybe don't watch a lot of horror movies, because to me, as somebody who has watched a lot of horror movies, this was the most basic, predictable, boring thing ever. I don't know, maybe if you don't watch a lot of horror movies, it's less basic and boring and predictable, but I did not like it, and I cannot recommend it. There are plenty of other horror movies that are better. Unfortunately, the next horror movie we're talking about is not better. It is Good Boy. So there's several movies called Good Boy. I'm talking about the one that came out in 2022. It's a horror movie. It's Norwegian. I watched it with subtitles. Normally, I don't like watching things with subtitles because I have processing issues while trying to read, but it's not very dialogue heavy, so in terms of being a foreign film, it's a lot more accessible in that department. It's not very good though. So the concept is good. I'll tell you the concept because it's right out the gate. It tells you what the concept is. It's in the description of the movie and everything. Basically, this girl meets this guy on Tinder and she goes to his house. He's really cool. He's rich, but he has a dog, but it's not a dog. It's a full-grown man in a dog costume. And she's this is some weird kinky shit. I don't know about this. But she keeps going back, and here's the thing. That's a fun concept. I feel like that concept could make for a really good horror movie, but it ends up just not. I don't want to say what the twist is because that would be a major spoiler, but it was so boring. The twist is lame. The twist makes the concept less interesting. I thought the dog costume was creepy, but it only works so much when the movie isn't good. It ends up just being torture porn, but not even fun torture porn. If you're gonna make a torture porn horror movie, I want it to be gory, Instead, the back half of the movie just turns into somebody's weird torture fetish, I guess. I don't know. It was a weird movie, but it should have been a lot weirder. It should have been campier or scarier. And it ultimately was just kind of lame. And it's the worst kind of bad movie because it had the potential to be good. So how do I follow up these bad horror movies? By watching LeapFrog Letter Factory. Now, when I was little, I watched this a lot in like school, and for some reason I really liked it. It's just like a little educational movie to teach kids the alphabet, but it's not good. And I don't want to hear it. I know I'm not the target demographic, I'm aware of that. However, I earnestly believe that kids' media should be good. And I also think it should be entertaining to all ages. Because, you know, typically an adult is going to be accompanying a child watching this movie. Do you really want to annoy and bore the adult portion of the audience that will inevitably be seeing it? No. Being a movie for babies is no excuse to not be a good movie. It's a musical, and by it's a musical, I mean they sing the same song for almost every letter. So it's just hearing the same song over and over again every like 30 seconds. And it's not a good song. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say. Just a annoying kids film. Scream, 1996. Now I had watched this forever ago when I was much younger. I'm a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan, and for those who don't know, it's the same director. Wes Craven did Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream. He did Scream 1 through 4, I believe, and he did Nightmare on Elm Street 1, I believe, Dream Warriors, and New Nightmare. He's also done other movies, but I like me some Nightmare on Elm Street. I wrote a whole musical based on a Nightmare on Elm Street 3. You should go listen to it. Link in description. Anyways, I had seen Scream forever ago, but I didn't remember much of it. I remembered liking it, and I remembered the garage scene, and I knew the twist because I feel like everybody knows the twist to Scream. But I didn't remember much of it. So I rewatched it because I have the original trilogy on DVD. For those who don't know, I mean, I think they're on like Scream 7 now, but originally it was a trilogy of just Scream 1, 2, and 3. And forever ago, I had bought the DVD set that had all three. It had been sitting in my DVD collection unopened, like still in the plastic wrap, literally for years. And this month I was getting back into watching horror movies, and I was like, you know what, I should watch the Scream trilogy. So I started, of course, with Scream 1, and it was really good. It's not a perfect movie. I'll put my score up here. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. Some people on my like private Instagram were like, 3.5 stars, that's so low. You have to understand, for me, anything 3 or higher is very complimentary. I'm very critical and nitpicky about films, even ones I like. I don't think it's perfect. I think the ending drags out way too long, but I think overall it's a very good film. If you like horror movies, watch Scream. I can also appreciate that it was kind of, you know, unique for its time of doing commentary on horror movies in a way that not a lot of horror movies were doing at the time. It kind of coined that, and I think that's cool. Also, Skeet Ulrich is in it, and he's hot, and Matthew Lillard's character is very fun. I know it's not a hot take to say that Scream is a good movie, but I liked it. Okay, so for those who don't know, I'm trans. I was born assigned female at birth, and I transitioned into a male. So Paris is Burning has been on my radar for a while. I first heard about it in the documentary Disclosure, which that in itself is a perfectly good documentary. I have some nitpicks on it, but we're not talking about that movie right now. Paris is Burning is a documentary that was filmed in the mid to late 80s, but was released in 1990, and it's about the like queer ballroom scene in New York in the 80s. So it includes interviews with a lot of drag queens and trans women and just generally queer people. It does have some behind the scenes issues, like with the documentary people apparently exploiting some of them. I don't know all the details there, but I wanted to acknowledge that so nobody in the comments is like, that movie's problematic. Yeah, but also it's very culturally important, so I watched it because it was finally on Tubi. Here's the thing, I had wanted to watch it for a while, but I couldn't find it streaming anywhere, and then I saw a DVD in person at like Barnes & Noble, but it was $40 fucking dollars. I'm like, sorry, I'm not paying $40 for a DVD of one movie. That's actually crazy. And I'm glad I waited because this month it came out on Tubi. So I watched it. I think it's very interesting. I don't think it's like amazing. I don't think it's like the best movie ever. It's definitely very informative to me as like a Gen Z white trans guy who doesn't live in New York about this largely black scene in the 80s. You know, part of the queer community I wouldn't otherwise know a whole lot about. It was very informative on that level. So I found that aspect interesting. It does deal towards the end with the death of a trans woman, and I found the way it dealt with it a little weird. Like, I didn't want them to linger on it for a whole lot, but they kind of gloss over it. Like, there's one interview clip of one of the women talking about the situation and then nothing else. And I found that really strange. Like, I get it's dark, but if you're gonna talk about it at all, maybe give it a little bit more respect than just being like, and then this happened. I don't know. Far from a perfect documentary, but it is very culturally important. If you're queer, you should probably watch it. If you're trans, you should probably watch it. And if you just want to know about this thing you maybe otherwise didn't know a whole lot about, then, you know, you should watch it. Scream 2 is not nearly as good as Scream 1. I think they even say it in the movie. They're like, the sequel is never better. And it's not. The sequel is... it's a downgrade. You know, the villain reveal at the end is lame. The ending again drags out too long. I do like that it kind of follows the same final girl. It definitely works fine as a continuation to Scream, just as a movie it's not nearly as good, which, you know, is gonna happen. The original Scream is iconic. It's kind of hard to top that. It was still a little bit disappointing, especially because, like, it's not a short movie. It's like 2 hours long. Also, I as a theater kid got really excited when it's like, oh, the main character is in a play. I thought she would perform the play and something would happen during that. That didn't happen. It definitely had some good moments. I wouldn't say it was like an outright bad movie. It was just a downgrade and I wish it was better. Movie Theater Massacre pissed me off. I also gave this one a 1/2 star on Letterboxd. So the title is clever, right? Because it's, you know, a slasher movie taking place around a movie theater, so Movie Theater Massacre, but it's also talking about the kind of death of movie theaters as a whole due to like COVID and streaming and stuff. It comments a lot on that. I'll get to that. So there's a double meaning to the title. It's Movie Theater Massacre in terms of like people dying at a movie theater, and also the massacre of movie theaters as a whole. I find that clever. However, it's not a massacre. Like, 3 people die. Also, the 3, like, main deaths don't even happen in the movie theater. They happen outside of the movie theater. And then there's, like, a few people get hurt at the movie theater at the end, but we don't see bodies. So for all I know, they're fine. Most of the movie is boring as shit. Like, nothing happens for most of the movie. It's an indie film, which is fine, but it's a pretentious indie film, which pisses me off. A lot of the movie is people just standing around talking about whatever issue the writer wanted to talk about, and it feels so unnatural. I'm like, people don't randomly have these conversations like this. The whole thing pissed me off. The deaths weren't even good. They were like, so, the ending was stupid. Everything in the movie was so stupid. Genuinely one of the worst things I've seen in a while. It almost made me want to rewatch Host, because at least that movie wasn't preaching to me every 5 fucking seconds. You know what I wanted? When I hear the name Movie Theater Massacre, I imagined the movie theater level in the video game Christmas Massacre, where in that you play as a serial killer. And there's a movie theater level where you have to sneak around and like kill people in creative ways. You know, a real massacre. I was hoping it would be something adjacent to that, because that's what the title fucking promises. And then it was just so lame and boring and I hated it. Bad movie. Don't watch this movie. Trick or Treat was very close to being a movie I would like. It's like a horror comedy and it has like separate storylines that are loosely connected because they all take place on the same Halloween night in the same town. I thought some of those storylines were interesting. My favorite one was the one with the bus full of children. It had decent autism representation, which I wasn't expecting. But overall, it kind of just felt messy. I liked the way that some of the stories were connected, but other ways they were connected didn't make sense. It was so close to being a good movie. I think I gave it like 2 out of 2.5 stars. For reference, if I give something 3 stars on Letterboxd, that usually is like, yeah, this was a good movie, I would potentially rewatch if somebody put it on. And it was just short of that. It was almost something I liked a lot, but it was just missing something. I'm not even sure I can articulate what it was missing. Maybe it just didn't click with me. I don't know. So the next movie I watched, I actually rented on YouTube, but I kind of regret spending my money on it. The Kings of Summer. So for those who don't know, I have a separate channel where I make video essays, and I'm part of a Discord community that often will do like video essay collaboration challenge type things. And one of those was a while ago. There was an event where everybody was assigned some sort of like summer camp-esque movie, and the instruction was to make a video essay based on that movie that was under 5 minutes long. The movie I was assigned was The Addams Family Values, but somebody else was assigned and did a video about The Kings of Summer. I'll link their video essay in the description because it's pretty good. But based on that video essay, I was like, this looks kind of interesting, so I had it on my watch list, and then this month I finally got around to watching it. This was another movie that was so close to being a 3 stars for me. So it follows the dude from Love, Simon. It follows him, another guy, and then a character named Biagio, who was actually played by the guy who played Poe in 5 Feet Apart. I talked about 5 Feet Apart in my January video. I'll leave it in the description. Fun fact, both Biagio and Poe both have cystic fibrosis. Biagio is a great character. Biagio was easily the best part of the movie. It had a lot of people I recognized. The dad was Nick Offerman, I think his name is. Alison Brie was in it. Lily Reinhardt. I don't know his name, but the guy who played Ethan in Euphoria. Like, it had a lot of people in it, which I found weird, because the movie is pretty mid, I fear. Basically, 3 boys go out into the woods, they kind of run away and build a house and live in the woods. Kind of like a Lord of the Flies type beat. I love Simon's character, the character's name is Joe, is like toxic masculinity incarnate. So the movie deals a lot with like toxic masculinity, and it's kind of like a coming of age story a bit. I don't know, it felt messy. And also, like, it doesn't give a good reason why Joe is running away. His friend Patrick has a good reason for running away. As in, like, you can understand why he does, because we see his parents interact with him a lot, and his parents are fucking insufferable. But Joe's home life, like, a lot of the problems are kind of just him lashing out and getting consequences for that. And Biagio, we don't really know enough about Biagio to know why he did this. It's an okay movie. I was just bored a lot of the time, which, like, this seems like the type of movie I should like. Biagio as a character was doing heavy lifting to make me not turn it off. Look at the fact that I paid money for it. I thought that Scream 3 was pretty bad. Now granted, it is not nearly the worst movie I saw this month, or even the worst movie I saw this month called Scream. We'll get to that. But it is not a very good movie. So it was the end of the original trilogy, and they make a lot of commentary about that in the movie, which is a little awkward since now we're on like Scream 7. They talk a lot in the movie about it being the last one, and you know, awkward. Who's gonna tell them? But they tried to do twists, and they tried to retcon a bunch of stuff, and when the killer is revealed, he's like the least intimidating person ever, which is ironic because out of all of the killers in Scream 1, 2, 3, he's the one to like make the most physical damage against the main final girl. Like, he beats the shit out of her, but he's so not intimidating. It also had like a paranormal aspect, like there was a ghost in the movie. I don't know. It's also a lot more slut-shamey than even the previous movies. Like, there's, you know, a healthy dose of slut-shaming in the first 2 movies because it's a 90s horror movie. But Scream 3 really went hard with it in the worst way possible. They also just recycled a side plot from the second movie. They recycled a lot from the second movie, actually. So in the second movie, the news reporter and the cop guy, you know, are like angry at each other at the beginning and then like fall back in love by the end. They did that again. The second movie has a lot to do with, oh, this horror movie is a thing. And, you know, in the second movie, it's like, oh, it inspired the violence. And then with the third movie, it's violence on set of a sequel of that movie. But it's still like, why are we doing 2 similar plots in a row? I didn't completely hate this movie. I will say it did some really cool things with a lot of the movie being on a film set. There's 2 scenes in particular that did really cool stuff with it being on a film set. I won't spoil it, but there's one scene that has to do with there being a bunch of like racks of ghost face costumes. And then they do another scene that has to do with like the upstairs portion of a set house, but because it's a set, it's not complete, so like the floor is missing. Those 2 scenes were cool. It reminded me a lot of some of the stuff they did in the movie Hellfest, which is a very good horror movie that you should watch. But yeah, no, overall I did not like Scream 3. I did enjoy I Am Divine. For those who don't know, Divine was the drag queen who was prominently featured in a lot of John Waters films. Pink Flamingos is probably the most iconic one, but he also made the original Hairspray movie and a bunch of other movies. Divine did other things in her career, like a music career, was in stage shows, all this stuff. I Am Divine is a documentary about that person's life, and it's a very good documentary. It goes very in-depth in, you know, her career, her personal life, has interviews with, you know, people who knew her. They did a very good job talking about his weight without, you know, fat shaming him, because his weight was an important aspect of him, but they didn't like shame his body, if that makes sense. Also, this documentary had me laughing hysterically at one part, because there's an interview with the mom, and at one point she's like, and I was telling him, hey Glenn, don't do anything that would embarrass us. And then on screen, it's the scene from Multiple Maniacs where Divine is getting fucked by a giant lobster. That made me laugh. Yeah, I don't know. It's like Paris is Burning, where I find it kind of hard to talk about a documentary. I also find it easier to talk about things that I dislike, because I can be like, here's everything wrong with it. Whereas with a movie I liked, I'm like, it's good. The movie was good. I don't have a lot to say about it beyond the fact that it was good. And I feel like documentaries are also hard to talk about, so I'm not going to talk about it much longer. But yeah, I Am Divine is a really good documentary. I give it 5 stars. I think it's the first thing on Letterboxd I've given 5 stars since I started using Letterboxd at the beginning of the year. Scream 1981 has no relation to the Wes Craven films, and it is one of the worst movies I've ever watched, both on a technical level and a viewing experience level. So it's a horror movie. It's not scary. They also, like, it's a slasher, but you don't see the slasher. Like, I'm fully convinced they just didn't hire somebody to play the killer, because we don't see him ever. It's painfully boring. The audio quality was fucking horrendous. Even Tubi doesn't give a shit about this movie. They didn't have subtitles for it. You know it's bad if even Tubi doesn't care. I say that as somebody who loves Tubi, but they have a lot of weird shit on there. The movie was boring. All of the characters were infuriating. It centered heavily on this one character, who was so annoying. Everyone else in the movie hated him too. But they put all this focus on him literally from the opening scene throughout the whole movie, and I was like, oh, he's gonna have some sort of heroic moment. He's the main character. But then he was just as forgettable as everyone else. He didn't have any sort of heroic moment. There was no point on putting all of this focus on the worst character. Yeah, it was just bad. The set is like this ghost town, and it kind of reminded me of Bunnyman Massacre, except Bunnyman Massacre is a masterpiece. This was not. I hated this film. It was a struggle to get through Scream 1981. Oh, also, I'm editing this right now, and I realized I completely forgot to mention the acting in this movie was fucking horrible. Genuinely, I don't know how the movie was this bad. Like, it's almost impressive. So I rewatched the first Equestria Girls movie. I was super into My Little Pony as a kid. That extended to the Equestria Girls movies. I remember I even saw the second one, Rainbow Rocks, in theaters. Rainbow Rocks is the most popular one because it's the best one. I think they ended up making like 4 of them. I never saw the 4th one, but I rewatched the first one. It's mid, but it's fun mid. I gave it a heart on Letterboxd, even though it was mid. I'm about to spoil the hell out of this movie. If you don't want that, then skip ahead to the next section. It did have some things that were like hella unrealistic, and not in the like, oh, it's My Little Pony way, but in like... So the whole thing with Equestria Girls is that Twilight Sparkle ends up in the human realm, right? But human realm logic also doesn't make any fucking sense. Either that or the people who wrote it never went to a public high school. Like, I'm sorry, you're meaning to tell me that a bunch of high school girls dressed up in horse ears and horse tails and did a flash mob in the cafeteria and people liked it at a public high school in America? You're kidding. And also, like, Twilight Sparkle is like, yeah, reveals that she's a horse princess from an alternate dimension and that she needs to win this high school contest to get a crown to save her home dimension. And if she doesn't get it by this certain date, the portal that happens to be right outside of the school will close and she'll be stuck there for 30 moons. Somehow, this girl doesn't end up getting put in a psych ward, which I find crazy. What do you mean everybody just accepts this? Also, this school has no sense of self-preservation. 3 students turn into fucking harpies and explode the front of the school, and does the school go into lockdown? No. They just all stand around, let themselves get fucking mind controlled. Like, okay. Also, I know it's a kid's show, but the ending is also really silly. Because the harpy girl, Sunset, is like, hey, she's crying. She's like, I didn't know about the power of friendship. If I knew I could just have friends, I wouldn't have done all this evil shit. And it's like, I'm sorry. She's Princess Celestia's ex-star student and she's this fucking dumb. Okay, it's not a very good movie. It's not like outright bad, but it is very mid. The songs were also kind of mid. And they were all electronic songs, which I guess explains why most My Little Pony fan music is electronic. I don't know, it's a weird movie. I liked it. Companion is also a weird movie. Basically, the premise is this guy has an AI girlfriend, and then the AI girlfriend goes rogue. He's like an incel. I hate him so bad. Like, that's the point of the character, but that doesn't make me hate him any less. It was a very good movie. Also weirdly emotional, specifically with this one side character named Patrick. Yeah, it was really good. I find it hard to talk about this one. There's not much I can say beyond, yeah, it was really good and I liked it a lot. I think in a world where AI is evolving so much, I feel like having a movie about a fuckbot going badly is funny and also very timely. Man's so shitty that his ChatGPT girlfriend breaks up with him. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna talk about this much because I'm finding it hard to talk about. I liked it a lot. Companion's a good movie. If you like comedy movies and don't mind violence, then check it out. Now, I have never seen a Friday the 13th movie. However, this month there was a Friday the 13th in real life on the calendar. So I was like, you know what? I should watch a Friday the 13th movie. And it just so happened that Friday the 13th Part 3 was free to watch on YouTube. So I watched it. It was very, very bad. I did a vlog on that day, and even in that video, I was like, wow, this movie sucks. And I don't think it sucks because I don't have the context from the previous movies. It was just like a bad movie. It was not a very good horror movie. It wasn't as bad as Good Boy or Scream 1981 or Movie Theater Massacre or Host. It wasn't that bad, but it was pretty rough. You know, everyone acts like a fucking idiot. They derive way too much of a horror out of the fact that Jason is deformed, you know. Not the fact that he's a serial killer. Obviously, that's the main problem, but she's like, and he has a scary face. And it's like, why does... He's killing people. I feel like that's the bigger concern. You even have this dramatic part where he shows his face and it's supposed to be scary, and it's like, no, I mean, he's scary because he's killing people, not because he's deformed. The ending was also weird as fuck. It was not a very good movie. It makes me wonder, are any of the Friday the 13th movies good? Because I feel like I always hear mixed things. I know people like Jason, but I feel like when it comes to the movies themselves, people tend to not like them as much. Like, I don't know if I've ever met somebody who was like, yeah, I love Friday the 13th, but it is iconic. And part 3 is the one that introduces his hockey mask, I do believe. The opening sequence was also like, I knew immediately that I was missing context from a previous movie because it opens like in the middle of a chase sequence, so I'm assuming I'm missing some sort of context. And that's on me. I don't blame the movie for that. I mean, it literally says part 3 in the title. Yeah, it was not very good. There's also this like incel side character who pissed me off so bad. God, he was so annoying. His name's Shelly. He was like the worst character. I hated him. It did have a couple likable characters, which doesn't apply to all of the bad movies I've talked about in this so far. I thought some of the deaths were cool, but yeah, overall I did not think it was a very good movie. So I went to the movie theater with my father and we saw Goat. It's a Sony Animations movie, sports movie by the producers of Across the Spider-Verse and Kpop Demon Hunters. Now here's the thing, I don't love a sports movie. I like Goon, that's a good movie. I generally don't love sports movies because all sports movies are kind of the same. And yeah, I say it's a sports movie and it plays out about how you would expect, but it was very good. Listen, I don't mind something being formulaic as long as it does well with the formula. Voice acting was all great. It was nice to see that like the big heroic athlete that he looks up to as a kid was a woman. You never really see that. It had a lot of heart for what it was. It also didn't do the thing where the main character fucks up in the final act of the movie and has to redeem himself. Pretty much every sports movie ever does that, and it's annoying every time. This movie didn't do that. The conflict in the third act it wasn't that, and I love to see that. The ending was a little bit abrupt. Not like devastatingly so, it's not like an issue really, it just felt a little bit like I wanted more, maybe just because the movie was good. Either way, I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd, which you've probably gathered by now is very high praise for me, but I don't really have nitpicks about it. And the nitpicks I do have aren't really fair nitpicks for what the movie is. Goat was really good. People should go watch it. I feel like I heard a lot about it before it came out, and then it came out and I didn't hear anybody talk about it, and it makes me sad because it was a good movie. Like, yeah, it's a sports movie, yeah, it's formulaic, but like, so is Kpop Demon Hunters. People aren't ready for that conversation. And that brings me to the final movie I watched this month. I rewatched Kpop Demon Hunters. Now, I have talked about the movie before in, I think, the video I explained about me going off of testosterone. I'll link that in the description, but that was buried in like an unrelated video, so I just want to talk about it. I've now seen Kpop Demon Hunters several times. I really like it. I think it's a really good movie. This time around, I watched it with my grandma because I found out that she hadn't seen it, and that is a sin. What can one say about Kpop Demon Hunters that hasn't already been said? The music is amazing. The title of the movie is kind of dumb. It's a formulaic story, but like it does very well. It's again like Go, where it does well with the formula. This movie means a lot to me. And I'm saying that as somebody who I don't care about K-pop. I don't listen to K-pop, but I like Kpop Demon Hunters a whole lot, and I think that's a testament to how good the movie is. And also, I feel like it does a good enough job, like, explaining K-pop culture and showing that to where you don't need that prior context in order to understand the movie. Like, maybe I would appreciate it a little bit more if I was familiar with K-pop, but it doesn't feel like a necessity, and it shouldn't be. However, it does have one big issue that I feel like I don't see enough people talking about, but it is, like, it's utterly jarring to me and I hate it. Rumi's speaking voice and her singing voice sound nothing alike. Now, they are quite literally 2 separate people. However, that's the case for all of the characters. Like, it's not uncommon in animation for a singing voice and a speaking voice, or even live action. They did that in The Greatest Showman. Like, Mira and Zoe are also separate singing voices, and then I think all of the Saja boys, except for Baby, are also separate singing voices, but they all fit. Rumi doesn't. And it's not anyone's fault, except the casting director. EJ, who wrote the music, or at least most of the music for the movie, is Rumi's singing voice, so that makes sense. But you could have found a voice actor that fit the singing voice more, because it's so jarring every time it's in a scene and she goes from speaking to singing or vice versa. Because it's very, very obvious that it's 2 separate people, and it pulls me out of it a little bit. I know I'm like harping on it, but for a musical movie, it's very distracting when the main character sounds so different when she's speaking versus when she's singing. But overall, it's a great movie. That just bugs me. But that was my February 2026 film log. Let me know if there's any movies you recommend, and maybe I'll get around to them eventually. I'll add them to my Letterboxd watch list at the very least. If you enjoyed this video, then, you know, like the video. Subscribe if you want to see these monthly updates and the other content I do. I make a lot of videos. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you whenever I see you again. Goodbye.